Hi Elevate, it's Morgan Roy, doing a haircut for you, some education from my home to hopefully yours. I've got my friend Lynn here and we're going to be cleaning up her haircut. She has some current disconnection and because of quarantine, she's done a little bit of trimming on her own that I'm sure, like most of you or some of your clients may have at home. And I'm just going to show you how to incorporate that. So to begin, I'm going to start with Lynn's hair is wet, and I'm going to just section off first where her undercut begins. And so really just making sure that my sectioning isn't taking more than what's currently been cut in Lynn's hair, because although she wears her hair short, she doesn't like for it to look too aggressive. Always making sure to leave everything nice and soft. Now, as far as technique goes, I'm going to be using disconnection, but going in with a layered technique, starting in the front and working around to the back. So you can see sort of right where all of this shorter hair begins. It's also been pretty texturized, and when we have something that's been texturized, it may not section away as cleanly for you. But the other nice thing is sometimes when you have irregular sectioning or irregular up and down sectioning, you're going to get something that's going to blend better, much like a highlight. So I'm just going to start in the front and beginning so that I don't take anything too short, first just combing everything forward. And I'm going to be using Lynn's hairline as my guideline. And I like to take that length over the ear so that what it does is it just really shows off the cheekbone. Because the beautiful thing about short hair on women is that it really gives us an opportunity to expose their facial features. So once more, I'm just, for anyone that's tuning in, I'm going to be doing a disconnected haircut here on my friend Lynn. And beginning with this disconnection, and first off just going through and outlining the length around the face. And then from there I'm going to go in at a finger's length. So as I approach this, it is important that I'm using my guideline for the previous section and I'm combing it to the previous. So I'm using forward over direction and also using the fine teeth of my comb. And the reason why I'm using forward over direction is that by using the proper over direction, it's going to slowly get a wee bit longer towards the back. I'm just over directing, and so here you can see where there is some of that excess buildup of weight. And what this will ultimately do is it's just going to reduce any of the weight in Lynn's haircut because she does wear it in a bob, really a variation of a box bob, and then just coming around behind the ear. And you can see my sections are quite vertical. And now with a vertical section, what that's going to do is it's going to help me reduce weight. Now, if I continue with vertical sections all the way through center back, what may happen is that we'll lose a little bit of the support for the top of the hair. And so what I will start to do is my fingers are going to work on a slight diagonal as I come towards center back. And as I approach behind the ear, once again, I'm just going to comb this hair forward. I'm just using the tips of my scissor. So once more, I'm doing essentially a cleanup of a disconnected short haircut on my friend Lynn. And I've already gone ahead and I've done the front in here, where first I went through and I just outlined the length and then working a finger's length over directing previous to previous to the ear. And now I'm going to start working slightly more diagonal as I approach center back. I've also got Lynn with her head slightly tipped away from me. And what that will do is it's going to allow for me to be able to put my fingers in where I need to be cutting. And because of the natural shape of the head, this will begin to graduate as I approach the back. And for definition of graduation, essentially it's an angle where it sits longer towards the bottom, or sorry, shorter towards the bottom and longer towards the top. And then just working to previous. And so you can see where some of the texturizing is, which is also a great technique to collapse weight in hair. So we have more than one way to, of course, do a haircut. And I'm working with an elbow down cutting position. So my hand is nice and close, my elbow in nice and close to the body. And I'm slowly moving around to center back. And once more, just looking for my guideline. And what this will also do is there's been some previous disconnection. This is just going to blend that through a little bit more before I further refine with scissor over comb. And just over directing to the previous. And you can see, now that I'm in towards the back, there is more length sitting along the crown. And the nice thing about that is it's just going to give that beautiful question mark profile in Lynn's haircut. And then one more section and I'll be complete on this side. So just crossing over center back by one section, over directing. And again, just layering through. And then looking to make sure everything is balanced. These little areas in here, once her hair naturally air dries, I'm going to go through with scissor over comb to refine. But once more, just to repeat, starting at the front for this first section, I began first by putting in my outline, using really the cheekbone as my guideline. Because I feel like you can naturally really contour someone's face by placing this section or this length in at the most flattering length. And then going through, keeping my sections very vertical, layering, and then as I approach the ear, I actually begin to graduate slightly, and then working all the way through to center back. So I'm going to drop down this section here, and I'm going to go to the opposite side. And doing the same thing on the opposite side. So once more, like I find oftentimes what hairstylists do is we over clean up people's sections. And then what happens is their haircut becomes not necessarily what they intended. So I'm just going to use like a slight, almost zigzag type section on Lynn here, just to blend what she already has. Because again, she likes her haircut. She doesn't want me to make it more aggressive than what she already has. She feels like how it has been cut in the past really works for her. And I find that with all of our really technical haircutting that we're doing, we sometimes lose focus as to what our guests actually want to achieve. So ideally, hopefully during some of our quarantine time, we've had some time to reflect and figure out what it is that we want to do as soon as we get back to work. Some of you may already be at work. Here in Ontario, we have not been given the go-ahead just yet, but hopefully very soon as we have massage therapists open, and so we're all just kind of waiting. So once more, just going through and placing my outline, and then I'm just going to tip you away from me a bit, and then placing my length. So again, looking at the cheekbone, and Lynn has beautiful high cheekbones. Well, everything about Lynn is beautiful. And just going in and taking to give myself a guideline. Now for my second side, in order to keep my over direction the same, I need to work with my elbow up. So also keeping in mind that I want to make sure that these first sections are very vertical. And I'm going to slowly be moving my body towards center back. And if you need, you can always ask your client, your model, to tip their head slightly for you. I think it's really important that we have our guests kind of be a part of the process, if and when we can have them. Okay, and then as I approach the ear, so this is my last section, I will then be working more on a diagonal. So just coming through here. So as I mentioned, just to reiterate, I'm doing a short disconnected haircut here on Lynn. And essentially what I'm doing is just blending in some areas that irritated her during quarantine, myself being included. I have a YouTube channel that if you haven't checked out already, I was hesitant at first because I know for a lot of salon professionals, they were not pro coloring their own hair or even having their clients color their own hair at home. I just know personally how much it affects my confidence when I don't have my hair colored. I also feel the same when I don't have my hair cut. So I was someone during quarantine. I've colored my new growth twice now, and I've cut my fringe, I think also probably twice. So when you're going back to work, you know, have compassion for your guests that may have done some of their own handiwork. Okay, so I'm just finishing off with my last section here. Working just past center back, you can see there's a little bit of length, which does happen when we work with over direction. So just to reiterate before I go into my scissor over comb. So far on Lynn, we started in the front on both sides, working through first by placing in the outline, then working with a layer with my sections very vertical until I got to the ear, working on a diagonal, coming through all the way into center back. On the opposite side, fingers very vertical until I got to the ear, then going in on a slight diagonal into center back. Now for me, I have a tendency to work on hair when I get to just go from wet into dry. I'm not someone that uses a spray bottle a lot because I like to see the hair sort of expand, dry a little bit on its own, because I feel like it's at that point that you sort of learn a little bit about the hair. And so from here, I'm just going to be blending in with slight scissor over comb. So then I'm just going to have you look straight ahead. And so with scissor over comb, so that it doesn't become too aggressive, I am using a dark blue comb, and the reason for that is I can see Lynn's blonde hair through this comb. If I was using a white comb, for example, it might be very hard to see what I'm doing. And again, I'm just blending this through a little bit. I don't want to take Lynn's hair aggressively too short or take this area too high. And so with my comb, I'm really just working at the shortest piece and then working outward. And that's going to help me retain the length that Lynn and I both want in her haircut. Okay, and then just doing a little bit behind the ear as well. And then doing the same on the opposite side. So center back really was where my guideline was. So just looking at my shortest piece. And then a little bit just behind the ear. Now Lynn does have nice light hair, and so hopefully you are able to see her hair getting cut on the iPhone. All right, so then just checking for balance, making sure that everything looks good. And having short hair myself, I know that I like to have it short, but I still like to make sure that it's going to be framing my features properly. And really there's sort of an ideal length that most women have. Lynn doesn't want to take too much off of the front, and that's because of where it's falling on her face is really sort of the ideal length. So like I said, it's just a cleanup, it's a trim. So then just taking with my trimmer, I find the trimmer does the best job of removing those little hairs that like to sit so close to the ear. And if we take them off with the scissor, we can almost go too high, or you can run the chance of nicking your guest, your model, and no one wants to do that. And you'll notice that I didn't do any clipper over comb through the back hairline, and that's intentional, simply because I don't want to take it too short. And I find with clipper over comb, you can take something a lot shorter than you want to in this case. There are times where I will use a clipper. There's times even when I will use a clipper and a guard to save time, or just for, it's the best technique to use at that time. So before I take this down, just to reiterate one more time, this is a short disconnected haircut for my friend Lynn. I've gone through and I've used the outline along the front, first as my guideline, then working a finger's length vertically to the ear, coming through on a diagonal, working with over direction so that I eventually get a tiny bit more length just through the crown so that it'll support and give lift to the top. So in saying that, I'm going to go into the top and spraying Lynn's hair down just a little bit of water. Well, one of the things that I think quarantine or COVID has been good for has been sort of this time to take a break for education. I know that I've been watching a lot of things from Elevate, my friends there, and I've seen a lot of my friends doing education, and I felt very honored to be asked to also share sort of what I'm thinking about and what I'm doing. And I hope you all like it as well. So as I go into the back here, you can see that there is disconnection, okay? And I really want to think about how this length in here is going to translate through the front and sides. Because for Lynn, she doesn't want to take it really much shorter than where it's falling, just below the chin. You can also see here where it does come up in length. So I want to think of something that's going to bring that together. Also, that will reduce some of the weight. Lynn has beautiful full hair. And so what I'm going to begin with is actually going in with a layer. So not doing anything into my outline right away. So with a layer, starting at center back, I'm going to choose a length so that when this falls, it will still overhang the disconnection below. Because if I take it to here, it's going to be way too short and it's not going to be as flattering. So I'm going to elevate straight up at 90, and in through here, I'm going to choose my length. And this is also going to remove any dryness. So oftentimes for blondes, we tend to get some extra dryness on the ends, myself included, right Lynn? You get those dry bits. Use wonderful products. I've got some leave-in conditioner in Lynn's hair from the Nutriplenish line from Aveda, which since it came out, I've been loving. Okay, so just over directing. So essentially what I'm doing is a layer in the back that starts shorter that will work to longer in order to retain that length in the front of Lynn's hair. My over direction is always towards the center. So when I'm even working on this side, I'm going to leave my fingertips pointing down because that's going to help me so that I'm not lifting too high. And I'm going to comb towards my previous. So my comb is really just on the one side. It never comes from this way, because if it comes this way, it's going to naturally come towards me. And because I have this wonderful disconnection, when I'm over directing, I really will run out of hair quite soon. So again, just those pieces there. My cross check is to stand behind, and I need to elevate at the same place that I cut it at. So going through, doing a little bit of cross check. So if it is a tiny bit longer, and you can see that I'm lifting to that elevation. All right, so then I'm going to drop that down and take a look and just see now how that's really folding or beveling in towards the round of the head, because we have the removal of weight that we get from the disconnection. So now working towards the top. So again, with Lynn, she wants to retain length. And so one of the best ways that I can reduce some of the bulk in through here is to work some disconnection through, is to layer throughout. So how I'm going to do that is actually start through the top so that I can maintain as much length as possible. And I'm going to over direct this hair back. So this is where, using a last piece from the back as my guideline, I can check to see sort of how short it was in through there. I'll put my hand so you can see it. And I want to remove sort of this hair in through here. The other thing that I'm looking at is sort of what type of hair is it? Is it really dry? Is it most likely to tangle? But I don't want to remove too much, so very vertical my section is, okay? So, to reiterate, I'm doing a triangular layer through the top. So I've already done the back, and now I'm going to over direct to the previous section using a little piece of guideline from the back. And I'm working with my fingers on an extreme angle to retain all of my length through the front. And this is going to leave Lynn's perimeter all the way through so that she doesn't have to worry about losing any length. How you doing? Okay. All right, so over directing. And you can even see just on that last piece, very little coming off. And now I like to take this approach, especially when I have a guest that may not really want to have a lot of hair cut off, and it's going to allow for me to remove bulk, but still retain all of the length. So for the opposite side I want to approach a little bit differently. Reason being is there's so little hair on this side compared to the other. Because Lynn, like myself, I like to wear a really far parting, and so oftentimes you need to consider your parting when you do your haircut. So I'm going to be taking the last piece from the back on this side, and I'm going to be layering with a concave. So coming up, and this time I'm going to really lock my fingers in, and I'm going to lift, 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 and anything that sits out, I'm going to remove. So a concave retains all of the length through the bottom, but removes any weight that's going to be sitting on top. Now with backward over direction, so I'm stationary also in this place, I'm going to be over directing everything back, stationary, so that I'm not to remove too much. And in the very front, doing the same. And for safety, I'm also going to just do a little tug at the front here to make sure that I haven't removed anything from the perimeter in the very front. Okay, so length has not changed in the perimeter. We still have that sitting in nice and soft. However, now we have a more blended line that's going to be coming through. It's not a severe line. Lynn likes her hair to be nice and soft. And now, one of my favorite parts, we're gonna go into styling. So for styling today, I'm gonna relax Lynn's hair a little bit by using the Smooth Infusion Style Prep Smoother. I think it's important that we show our guests how they can style their hair without heat. Because it's summertime, and I know that also as far as during COVID, a lot of salons are not using blow dryers, and so I thought it would be important to show you a way that you could be styling your guest's hair, especially short hair, without using a blow dryer. So why I've chosen to use the Smooth Infusion Style Prep is it's just going to relax the hair. I have naturally very curly hair. Lynn and I were talking about that because she's one of the few people that have actually seen it dry naturally. And I always joke and say that it's like a dandelion. So for myself, I think it's really important to first use a product that's going to soften the hair. Lynn has a little bit of curl just in her front hairline. And so I really want to make sure that there's enough product to really kind of soften that. And then in addition to my product that has softening, I want to add a product with hold. And there's different ways that I can do that. If I don't want to have a really crunchy feeling, I can go in with something like a spray gel, something like the Aveda Volumizing Tonic. Or I could use a hairspray, which is just a finishing product, or I could use a gel. The only thing with gel is it tends to be really firm, and I don't think I want to go in with something so firm. So I am going to use my Volumizing Tonic, and I'm just going to spray that. Oh, hold on, 1 second. So I'm just going to spray that throughout. And the beauty of this is that you're also teaching your guest a different approach to how they can style their hair. And you'd be surprised if you give people a chance to try something new. Most of the time people are open to trying something. And I'm going to also ask Lynn to help me. So I'm just going to pass you a couple of these really lightweight aluminum clips. So if you want to pass those to me, just give you a couple more. And so from here, I'm going to use my wide tooth comb, and I'm going to set a pattern in Lynn's hair. So Lynn typically wears her fringe swept to the side. Okay, so if I want to have something that's going to be more sweeping, I can go ahead and I can set that. Now I like to have a little bit of my teeth mark showing because I feel like it just makes everything not look too flat, too pancaked. Okay, so just placing my first clip. And why I'm using these aluminum ones is they're so nice and light. Okay, and now keep in mind, I'm not finger waving Lynn's hair. I'm really just giving it an opportunity to lay a little flatter, okay? And then to have this area lay flat, if I was to leave it down, naturally it's gonna kick. So essentially what I'm gonna be doing is like a wig wrap, okay? Or a wet wrap, where I'm just gonna be taking this hair back. And then again, just loosely clipping that hair down. Now because I'm doing this from wet, and I do want it to dry, I will be using a little bit of a diffuser to speed up the process. But you could, encourage your guest at home. This is an opportunity for her to do something new. Okay, so now that I have that in place, I'm just going to go in with my diffuser. So again, once more, if you were not on a time crunch, you could just have someone, it's a beautiful day in Toronto, they could be outside. But just so that you get an idea. hot? Okay. And actually, so Lynn doesn't get too hot. Right now is also a good time to. You don't have to wear a glove when our hair dries. Just to remove anything that would be itchy. I know I've been using the Aveda dry shampoo is actually wonderful at removing any little baby hairs that are stuck on the neck. And I'm just going through and I'm just checking for temperature, making sure it's not too hot on Lynn's head. Also just making sure that the air is being guided through. Because if you have anything too flat, it will take a long time to dry. Much like when we do laundry and we put too many clothes in the dryer at once, there's no opportunity for the air to get in between the clothes, so everything takes a lot longer to dry. So just, even though I have the hair being held down with the clips, I am just going through and making sure to dry so that I don't get marks on my clip as well. I can just dry sort of section by section until that area feels dry, and then I can move on to my next step. And so will this give you a flat iron finish? Absolutely not. But it is going to come out a lot smoother than just having the hair dry without any direction whatsoever. But what I will do is I will make sure to post.
What?
I will be sure to post a finished result of Lynn's hair. But for now, what I'll do is I'm just going to recap. So very quickly, this is a short haircut with disconnection on my friend Lynn. To begin her haircut, I went through first just by placing an outline, working a finger's length towards the ear, and then coming through with diagonal sections, doing that on both sides, then moving along to the top, sectioning away the crown, working with a layered section, so elevating 90 degrees off the crown, working previous section to previous section so that I can retain a little bit of length in through the sides, then working along to the top, standing on Lynn's left side, so that my fingertips are pointing down to where my shortest piece will be, and working from short to long. So my fingers were really angled down in this section in order to keep as much length as possible in the front. Working, over directing to a stationary point so that all of the outline length will drop through. Once that side was complete, I came around to the opposite side, standing in front, so that this way, again, my fingers are really pointing toward the shortest place on the head, and then over directing with a stationary guideline to this point here. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to finish off drying Lynn's hair. Actually, we're going to go sit in the sun, and I hope to catch you later, and happy Monday to you all.